it's not like me thinking, "Oh, damn it, I have to go out to dinner with my girlfriend for her birthday and have an awesome time."
Justin goes, Courtney, I'm just ordering pizza. And I'm like, you were supposed to make the potatoes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Truth Talks, the podcast where we bring you real strategies for sustainable fitness transformation. Now, this episode premieres on the week of Valentine's Day. So we figured, why not do an episode all about the importance of partnership in your fitness journey and how having a supportive partner can really add a ton of value as you pursue your fitness goals. So if you're watching this, you might have noticed already, but if you're listening, you might have not, that we actually have two very special guests with us this week. In honor of strong and supportive partners, we have two partners with us here today. So my partner, Justin, is sitting right next to me. And on the other side,
my partner, Tara, is sitting right next to me as well. And both of our partners love talking a lot and love talking a lot on camera. So this is going to be an amazing, amazing episode.
Well, you know what? It's going to be fun for all of us to be doing this together. And no matter how much they love talking on camera or talking in general, we know that they have valuable things to say. So the first thing we want to start off with is actually understanding when we talk about a supportive partnership, what are we actually talking about here? And now I know that's a very, generalized concept, and with partner, you go through all these life events together. Today, we're going to focus specifically on when it comes to your fitness journey and the applications of your fitness journey. So Parris and Tara, please start off by telling us just a little bit about what do you think makes for a supportive partnership, or how would you define that when it comes to your fitness goals?
I think I'll kind of start. I think just having somebody that has a really good understanding of your vision is really important, but they don't need to necessarily do the same things as you, or even really understand 100%, the importance of it to you, but they need to respect it and support your actions towards that goal if they ultimately know that it's going to put you in a better spot and make you a happier person. I think a good partner wants you to have purpose, and I think a good partner wants you to develop yourself. And obviously fitness journey is like a major way to focus on self-development. It's one of the biggest forms of self-development. So I think if your partner truly is supportive, like they'll want you to take on a journey towards, better health and fitness, you would hope.
Yeah, for sure. I honestly, I completely agree with what you said. I think even just like the little micro things you can do to when you're cooking chicken breasts, maybe think they might not want want me to add a lot of oil or butter. So just to kind of just take them into consideration in terms of knowing, maybe you could eat separate meals, but as in you're still supportive of what they're doing, because you respect them and the choices that they're making.
I think it goes both ways, right? It's like you shouldn't expect your partner to have to live the same lifestyle as you necessarily, but they should also accept that you maybe make different choices than them. And it doesn't mean that anybody's right or wrong. It's just having that mutual respect for each other's decisions on their choices towards either eating or lifestyle based stuff.
So it really is just about respecting your partner's goals and their preferences in the process and respecting what it means to them. And Tara, I liked what you said about, taking their own preferences into consideration, right? And yeah, it doesn't have to be same as yours, but that mutual respect that you have being at the crux of it all. Justin, how do you think about supportive partnerships when it comes to fitness? What stands out for you and how would you define it?
I like what Parris said. Your partner doesn't necessarily have to understand everything that you're doing in terms of calculating macros, weighing out food, so on and so forth. But I think it's important to, as a partner, understand that they're going through a process of learning and growth and development themselves, and being respectful and understanding of that process. But I also think it's important that you still have, common routines. So sitting down to eat together and, talk about those experiences and still, continue to foster and cultivate a good relationship.
Yeah, I like what you're saying about making it a shared experience too, because I think for you to have that respect, you almost have to go through it together in some way, shape, or form, right? Even if it's not the same thing that you're doing, having visibility, I think, is a key way that you build that respect for each other's goals and preferences. So, whether that's through talking to them about it or showing it to them, even if they don't understand it, they know what you're doing and they at least know why it matters to you.
think that's a really good point. And I think also with that visibility, I think you should almost think of like, let's say one partner is like super into a specific goal. I think you can almost think of it as like a team project.
Mm.
It's like, okay, maybe you're not eating the exact same thing, but maybe somebody's cooking a bunch of stuff and then you're going to measure in the way that you need it for your goals. Or, okay, let's go on a walk together and have a good conversation. And because we want to, I need to get my steps in, but like it's also time to connect, right? So it's just kind of like having ways of blending your pillars. If you have, instead of making it two separate pillars of like fitness and then relationships, it's finding ways to blend your pillars so that you're in some way killing two birds with one stone in terms of meeting both of those. And also, like when you do complete the goal, because the person was a part of it the whole time, it's a celebration of the project that you worked on together. Like, for example, when I did my competition prep, obviously I did a lot of competitions in a spread out time frame. But like when I was hopping on stage, it was almost like a representation of like a project that Tara worked on with me. You know what I mean? So it's more of a celebration versus if I kept everything shut out and didn't involve her, then when you step on stage, it's like, okay, Paris celebrates alone. And then now we can get back to living a normal life together, right? You see the difference?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And I think when you talk about some of the examples of like ways, that you can support each other, you kind of alluded to some of them as you were speaking. For me, what really stands out, I think, is there's two key kind of ways you can support. There's the practical support, and then there's also the emotional support. And both of those things have a role to play and have a function in developing that supportive partnership. So like when I think about Justin and how he supports me, one of the key things he does that I value so much is he knows that me setting aside time to pursue my fitness goals, whether that's going to the gym or whether that is, maybe spending a little bit of extra time in the kitchen, he makes sure that I have the space in my schedule to do that by taking care of a lot of things at home. So with those things off of my plate, it enables me and creates space to dedicate towards my fitness that I wouldn't have otherwise. And that's a really practical way in which he supports me. The emotional stuff, of course, he supports me as well, which we'll get to in a second. But I wanted to know from you guys, are there any, Justin, I'll actually turn to you first and say, are there any kind of practical ways in which you find support matters from your partner, myself, in your fitness journey?
In my fitness journey?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always very helpful to have someone who keeps you accountable to your own personal fitness goals. For those of you who don't know me, I am also a gym goer, avid gym goer, go 5 times a week, as well as, track my macros. But Courtney keeps me accountable to doing so, which is good because some days, I'll get caught up in work and you will be like, hey, did you remember to eat breakfast today? Mm-hmm. And, she'll support me that way or, prepare a breakfast for me, which is really nice. And then not only that, but give me the macros for it. So it's good to, have a partner that can also kind of keep you accountable to your own goals. Yeah, I guess my thoughts on that.
You're actually looking pretty jacked, Justin. I got coach's eyes. You can't get any body composition changes past me. I see everything. So
it's my macro-friendly breakfast.
Yeah, it must be that. But no, that's some good points, man. Some really good points. And I think it looks different. Those practical things look different for everybody. Like even on the way here, when I was like, okay, I was taking the train to Terrace. Obviously, this is not my office, considering how cool the artwork is. I would never have cool artwork like that. But if for those watching on YouTube, but even like we chat on the phone, she's like, okay, like, do you need anything for dinner? And I was like, okay, well, I brought, ground turkey and potatoes, but like, do you have salad or something, or what veggies you have? And just like keeping the open conversation and involving them, I could very easily be like, no, I'm just going to bring my own like dinner and that's it. And I already ate like without you or something like that. But instead it's like, okay, even if you're eating different things, making sure your partner has what they need to be successful in their individual.
Tara, what about you from a practical perspective? Where do you find practical support in your supportive partner?
I think for me, support comes in curiosity and active listening. So for example, like obviously Parris is a coach. He coaches everybody from like, people who are kind of beginning in their fitness journeys to like people who are like, decades into their fitness journeys and doing like stage shows and all of that stuff. But I think for me, like he's always been very curious about what are my goals, and has helped me to kind of achieve them in a way that's so like not aggressive, not like even like a telling kind of thing. It's more like he does my programs for me, which is so helpful in terms of like my workout programs. And then in terms of food, honestly, I think like being with a partner, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about this later, but like being with someone who prioritizes their health so much, I think it rubs off on you in such a good way when you're dating someone like that. Because for us, like ultimately, by him prioritizing his health and it's rubbing off on me to prioritize my health, then we're investing in both of our futures together as well, because like we're supporting each other to have a longer and a more like vitality filled life. So I think what makes a supportive partnership is like wanting the best for each other. And in terms of health and fitness, it's really like you're investing in each other's futures together. Because if one person is, has maybe certain unhealthy habits over time, that can potentially impact your health. And obviously, you don't want that in your partner. So I think just kind of committing to it together, and it could look completely different for both people. But I think just in general, having like those healthy habits and supporting each other in them.
Yeah, because like we later in life like want to travel, we want to do things, we want to explore, we want to be like feeling really good in our relationship. And I think if one is healthy and one is not healthy, all of a sudden all the things that you want to do later in life that you work so hard for are less reach and less in reach. And it's unfortunate, right? People will spend their whole lives like slaving away, and then when they can finally open up their lives to maybe more travel or more vacations or spending more time together, like they're not living the quality that they could.
Yeah, because it'd be tough if like, one of us is like bouncing around at 70 and the other one's like barely get out of bed, Obviously there's certain factors that we can't control, but for everything that's in our control, I think it's important to support each other, to just live I know healthy is so vague, but like a healthy lifestyle.
So, how do you stay emotionally supportive of one another? Because we talked about the practical pieces already. And when you start to carve that long term vision together, I feel like that needs to have a really strong emotional foundation too. Not just because there's mindset oriented around like, that longer term vision for things and sharing that together, but how do you then turn that into like emotional support for each other on a day to day basis?
That's tough. That's a good question, actually. You
Are you
always got
surprised I asked a good question?
no. You always got the tough questions for me. No, it's good. It's good. It's good. I think Tara and I have really strong communication. I think, and that was something that we decided on from the beginning, that we would always like communicate well with each other and wouldn't leave anybody guessing. So I think we are good at communicating when we need certain support emotionally, and I can always just kind of intuitively know when something's off, even if I have to ask her a few times. That classic thing where you have to ask your girlfriend 3 times before she tells you. But no, I think it all stems from communication, and like we just tell each other like when we need support, and then the other person can support. But if your partner doesn't know that you need support, like if you never ask for support or never tell them that, hey, this is what I need support on right now, like what are they? They're not a mind reader,
Yeah, for sure.
Great. Communication, I would say, is the main thing. Like, it's like, what do you need right now? And like, how can I help? And even with his prep, like, obviously that was emotionally a very, like, probably the toughest time in terms of like, just like, it's a lot to go through. But I think he had prepared me for it so much beforehand. So then by the time it came, I was like, oh, this is it. Like, because we had like talked about it so much. So I think just like, even when you're about to go, let's say through a cut or like through something like maybe you're training for like something big, or it's some like you're doing something that's going to have a big impact on your life day to day. I think just telling your partner in advance and letting them know what they need or what you need during that time, and then them letting and listening to what they might need as well, and still checking in throughout the process as well, like, is this still okay? How are you feeling? How am I feeling? All of those things. I think that's the main thing emotionally. But I'm curious about you guys and how like you guys support each other emotionally as well.
Yeah. What do you think? You start.
Yeah, I mean, we both have good days and bad days. Relationships, everybody always thinks are perfect and should always be a 50-50 split of everything, when reality is that's not the case, right? Some days might need 60% of the attention versus Courtney 40% of the attention, or vice versa. And I think it's about, Parris, and you mentioned too, great communication with your partner. Court and I have been together for close to 11 years now at this point. So, our communication, I think, is pretty good, but we also know each other pretty much inside and out, that even the nonverbal cues, I think we can pick up on how each other are feeling on particular days. And so I think it's about really just understanding what your partner needs of you on any given day. And if you're not getting that from your partner, having that conversation, be like, hey, I'm really not feeling myself today. If you wouldn't mind, doing the chores that need to be done today, or help prep some food, or maybe, take the dog out for a walk, and just understanding where each other are at in terms of their mental space and mental capacity for the day as well, I think is very important to being successful in your goals in everyday life. So
absolutely. I think what you touched on just reminds me of how much, your fitness and your fitness journey and the tasks and the actions to get you there do take mental capacity. So if you find that your life is expanding and that mental capacity is dwindling, thinking about adding fitness into it can be incredibly daunting. And I think having your partner understand what your baseline is can really help them support you better, right? So when you communicate to them, this is where I'm at, they can, like, I'll just take us for example, since we're talking about us anyways. Justin really helps me figure out where fitness can fit into my priorities for the day. So, on those days where I am not my best self or feeling overwhelmed, and as much as I'm an avid gym goer, there are those days where it feels like yet another chore on the list, right? And so being able to talk to Justin about it and be like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed right now. Can you help me? And he'll kind of say, okay, well, what is the non-negotiables for today? And he can actually help me make a decision around, maybe today is the day I take my rest day based on everything else on my plate. And he provides me with a lot of emotional relief by going through that process with me. And he knows me well enough, like he said, to be able to say, you know what? No, you still have to go today because this is your thing. And he'll give me that nudge out the door and say everything else can wait. Or he'll say, you know what? No, you need to take this time and focus somewhere else today. So just having that external person who knows you well enough to understand where fitness is within your priorities and help provide an objective opinion on it on a day-to-day basis can be really helpful.
Yeah, I like the ratios that Justin used. He can even say, okay, what are you today? Okay, I'm a 30. Okay, I'm going to make sure I fill in the rest of the 70 today. You know what I mean? Or vice versa. So, okay, what are you at? You're at 80? Okay, great, because I'm only at a 20. You know what I mean? Like, and kind of having that, because you become 100 together, and if both people are at a 30, then it's like, okay, well, now let's work together to try to figure out how to get an extra 40. Good math, right? But but yeah. So yeah. I like that ratios.
We talked a lot about communication just now and the importance of communication. And I think it's probably not surprising for anybody to hear communication makes for a supportive relationship, because I think that is the number one thing. If you ask anybody who's been in a long-term relationship, they're always like, oh, communication is key. What are other aspects, or more known typical aspects of a healthy relationship that apply to fitness as well? So I think about things like quality of time or acts of service. Are there some examples you guys can think of those critical things for a good relationship that translate into the kind of realm of fitness?
I think a lot of people, and I'm sure Teo will have good points on this as well, but I think a lot of people really miss the mark on developing self-awareness. It's hard to be a good communicator if you lack self-awareness. And people, I think they say, yeah, it's so cliche, like, oh yeah, we need to be a good communicator in a relationship. But if you're not self-aware, you can't be a good communicator. Like, yes, communication skills are in itself important, but in order to be a good communicator, you do have to have the self-awareness developed. And I think a lot of people use relationships as a gap filler almost. They look at things and see what they're missing, and then they fill it with a relationship. Whereas you should have those gaps filled, and then the relationship should be almost like an add-on, right? And when that's, I think, a really strong relationship. It has two people that are okay by themselves, and then they're just way better when they come together. I don't know if that even answered the question, but
I think it's still important.
Yeah.
Yes,
and like independence too, right? Like is kind of what it's like talking about. Because yeah, for example, like if one person has like a longer workout than the other person, and the other person, you don't want them just like sitting there being like, when are you gonna be done? I'm bored, blah blah blah. You want, like, you got to have your own independence as well to be like, okay, you know what, I have some extra time now, I'm gonna go knitting, or I don't know what people do, play video games, go for a walk.
All of the activities.
Knitting.
We were talking about knitting.
Yeah, we were talking about knitting.
Apparently, I look like someone who would knit. I don't know. That's what Parris said.
No, that's not what I said. It was a different context. It was anyways.
Are you wearing a knit sweater right now, or is that just a regular sweater? I'm trying to suss it out.
It all started because I said I wanted a quilt for my bed. And
yeah, so I asked, are you going to knit the quilt?
Yeah, but quilts aren't knitted.
What do I know about quilts? I'm a 27-year-old dude.
Okay, back to independence as a strong indicator of a supportive, healthy relationship.
Yes. Yeah, I think independence is super important. Another one I think is the ability to leave your ego at the door. Leaving your ego at the door, I think, is super important because I think most arguments between couples will usually be rooted in some sort of like taking something the wrong way, when really it's people, you should feel comfortable voicing anything that your needs in a relationship. So for example, like if your partner didn't do the dishes and then you're mad at them for that, and then you voice that, and then your partner should be able to hear that without hearing like I'm lazy or I'm dirty or I don't know. It's the ability to, when your partner comes to you with something, to not feel like it's a reflection of you, and that
Don't take it personally.
yeah, not take it personal.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think when you think about fitness, ego is often at the center, whether we want to admit it or not. A lot of our motivations for going on our fitness journeys have to do in some way, shape, or form with our ego. So how do you leave your ego at the door, or at least, maybe if you don't close the door, it's still there, but it's maybe off in the distance, when you're having a conversation with your partner about your fitness journey?
I feel like it's just remembering that you're on the same team and you're not against each other. So like, if your partner's coming to you with an issue or a request or a need, that they're looking for a solution, to find a solution together. And they're not coming to you, hopefully not, and just saying like, you suck, I hate you. Like,
Find a new relationship.
yeah, if that's the case, you should probably, yeah. But yeah, just not taking it personally and just kind of remembering that it's a joint effort.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you think about
Yeah.
that, Justin.
What was the question?
When
Personality traits?
how do you have a conversation with your partner about your fitness goals without bringing ego into it, or giving ego the right place within that conversation when your ego might be driving your own independent fitness goals?
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, it's still a partnership. I don't think you can ever just leave ego behind. I think ego will always be there, but it's about understanding how to navigate the space in a way where there is still room for your goals and, I guess, your ego, if you will, but understanding that it's a partnership and that what you do will directly impact your significant other every day, every decision you make. So it's about, still having your own goals and your own ambition, but still understanding that, my partner is also along for the journey or for the ride, that your decisions ultimately impact your partner's day to day as well. So it's about keeping in mind that if you're going to go out for a workout at a specific time, letting your partner know that, hey, my plan is to go from this time to this time. I recognize that, it's been busy lately, but we'll hang out later tonight. Or, setting boundaries around certain things and communicating those boundaries. So that way, your partner can also just be an ally for what your goals are as well.
Love it. So I think what we're getting into kind of as we start to talk about ego is this idea that fitness is such an individualized thing, right? My fitness goals are uniquely mine. And as much as I want to involve my partner in them, they're mine to achieve in their own way. They kind of start with me. So how, Parris, you talked earlier about this concept of it's a team endeavor and it's a team accomplishment. And Tara, you said being on the same team still. And Justin, you talked about how you need to include your partner in the process. How do we start to do that? Because your fitness goals are so individual. What are some of the, like, if we think about the tangible, practical ways that you can start to involve your partner in the fitness journey? How do you make it a shared experience?
I think, there's two sides. There's the one, like I said before, like, okay, we're going to hit our steps by going on a coffee walk and having good conversations. Like those kind of things, that actual like activities, like, okay, we're going to go to the gym together. Like that would be two examples of those. But then there's also the side which we kind of tapped into a little bit earlier, which is the planning portion. I think is big. So if, just as you said, like, I'll be like, okay, what do we have going on this weekend? Okay, where's the best place for me to work out? or like trying to fit it. So you look at your schedules together and it's like, okay, these are the things I have to do to be successful in my fitness journey. Where's the best place for me to insert those that's going to have the least interference on you, or the plans that we have, or the social things that we have, or the family things that we have? And that way it's not like you're in your head like, oh shoot, all this stuff and my partner's getting in the way of me being able to go work out or hit my meals or whatever. And it's more so like, okay, let's problem solve this together and come up with a game plan together to go execute, right? And like I even try to communicate what my actual goals are and what phase I'm in with Terra too. Like, okay, right now I'm in a building phase. So this is the actions I need to be successful. And this is where I'm at. And this is what probably next phase is going to be and when it's going to be. So your partner has that predictability. And like, for example, like we're going on a Greece trip later. Okay, I'm not going to plan like a fat loss phase while we're in Greece, for example. It's like, okay, I know we're going to Greece there. So it's like, okay, let me plan a time where maybe that's a deload week, or okay, that's when I'm in a maintenance phase, or like little things like that. That way you have this like kind of periodized plan together.
Yeah. I think the planning also extends on the food front, right? So yes, you can plan your weekly schedule together or things like that, or even the long-term planning you alluded to. But one of the things I like to do, Justin, you can tell me if you have feedback on it, but is ask Justin, hey, like, what do you want this week for groceries? What do you want to make sure you have available? So that if I'm the one building out the grocery list, I've taken his thoughts into consideration. And, we'll also talk about what are the core meals we're going to have this week. And that way, let's say one of us gets behind schedule with something, the other person kind of already knows. This is what was planned. This is what we're going to be making. This is what we can do to prep the food. And I think that goes a long way too, because then no matter what phase you are in, at least that person has an understanding of what your immediate needs are, and like you can work together towards them. So going back to the idea of we know what's for dinner, Justin and I have different intakes, different, caloric requirements and macros, and maybe other pieces of our day look different too. But if we kind of both know what's for dinner, we can both plan our individual days around that. So there's no surprise later when Justin goes, Courtney, I'm just ordering pizza. And I'm like, you were supposed to make the potatoes, right? So, things like that don't really happen because we know it. And then, Justin still loves to ask me, can we order pizza tonight? So we have that conversation in advance and decide what are the days where we're going to, like, when do we want to go out to eat? What are we going to order, if we're ordering in? And we have those conversations together too. And it goes back to planning. It just takes a little bit of joint planning together to get there so that all needs are met. The need for pizza is met, the need for time together is met, and that need to, in the interim or between pizza sessions, stick quote unquote on track with our goals is still happening for each one of us. What do you think?
Yeah, I like what you said there. I think so much of the thought around health and fitness is really focused on the gym, when a majority of the time is not at the gym. So it's about the time that you're not there. What can you do to continue to cultivate a healthy lifestyle? And a lot of that, is finding things and activities that you can do with your partner that might seem or might not outwardly seem like you're working towards some sort of fitness goal, but it's still serving a active lifestyle or a healthy lifestyle. So we play indoor beach volleyball together once a week, which is always a highlight for me. When we go take the dog out for a walk at night, it's nice to have that time where we can reconnect on the walk, with the dog, but we're still getting our steps in at the end of the day. Yeah, it's about recognizing also that there's more to health and fitness than just the time that you're at the gym, and making sure that you're still kind of hitting those targets outside of the gym as well.
And the time when you're not in the gym is the time you're more often spending with your partner, right? So it becomes even more critical for the relationship.
I love that. And I feel like you guys do a really good job too of like making meals together and like making that a whole experience. And I love that. And yeah, love doing that too. Oh, serious. We do that too sometimes now that he's out of prep.
Yeah.
Might work a little different, but yeah.
So I do have one more question for us to tackle today, which is, what do you do when you're at different stages of your respective fitness journeys? Because, there might be times where, Parris, for example, when you were in competition prep, Tara was not. And that's an extreme difference in where you're at with your stages. Or, right now, Justin's eating at maintenance calories, which are usually always going to be higher than mine, but I am in a fat loss phase, right? So that definitely changes kind of where specific elements of our fitness journeys are in terms of our list of priorities, but we are in different places. How do we reconcile that with continuing to embrace this idea of supportive partnership, even though we might be, prioritizing slightly different things in the moment?
Yeah, it's tough. And sometimes that does get tough. Like, for example, when I was in prep and we went to Montreal on like a trip, and right out of prep, when you're still like not recovered yet, we went on another like trip, and we did have some tough conversations, I think, around those time frames on like, I personally, something I am not good at is like turning off, right? I'm a very, A type, hyper focused type personality type, and that's just me.
What? I
And
had no idea.
Tara knows that about me. But when it comes to, your partner wanting to enjoy experiences with you, you do have to find a way to meet in the middle, or else you're robbing them of some of their experience. So that's also a good learning experience for me and a good conversation point that we had. And I think it's trying to find that meeting in the middle. Like, for example, when we went to Montreal, I wasn't drinking, and my bedtime's pretty early, but we did have some late nights, and like obviously Tara's gonna have fun with our friends and everything. So it's like, I'm not gonna say, oh, we need to go to bed at midnight, and I don't want to go to the next bar, or I don't want to do this, because then I'm robbing her of the experience. So it's like, okay, let me just suck it up. Okay, I lost one decent night's sleep. Who cares in the grand scheme of things? I might be a little bit hungry towards the end of the night. Like, who cares? Because she's meeting in the middle by also maybe potentially giving up some of the experience by not having me indulging in certain things that she would indulge with me. So she also deserves for me to maybe be less quote unquote optimal for those periods of time. And it's not necessarily easy, but I think you just have to talk about it before, during, and after.
And if you look back on that too, right? Like, and you think about the rest of your competition prep journey and everything that happened after that, there was you meeting in the middle and giving up a little bit of that optimal really had no downstream effect, did it?
No, it didn't. Mind you, like when I was younger, I would have not been able to handle a trip like that in the context of what phase I was in. But through years of developing those skills, I can do that. But you're right. When you zoom out, when we get so hyper focused on like small time frames, when we're in these really big goals and extreme goals, when you really zoom out, you're like, okay, it didn't really impact things, right?
But
then,
the impact in the memories that you made for both of you guys,
exactly,
that's the lingering effect.
100%.
So it's having the maturity to take that moment and zoom out and say, okay, if we're meeting in the middle, is there actually a compromise here, or are we both gaining? Or what are the little things that we might be quote unquote trading off? How do we frame this in a way where we're both gaining something for the long term?
100%. And I think it's also just recognizing, like, if you do have this big goal and your partner is sacrificing, like, you do have to give back to the relationship. Like, there was a certain period of time where, it was, I think it was Tara's birthday or something, and we were going to go out, like, to Chota Mate, which is like, a menu, which a lot of different foods or whatever, and we were going to have a couple drinks. And I was in a very, like, focused phase, but, like, I specifically planned ahead for that. And I told my coach, like, hey, I'm going to have this night, probably going to end up somewhere around this calorie range. How should the rest of my week look? And that way, it's planned for, and it's not like me thinking, oh, damn it, I have to go out to dinner with my girlfriend for her birthday and have an awesome time. Like, what a horrible thing to be thinking, when one day like that is really not going to make a difference. And if you plan for it, it's really not going to make a difference. Okay, maybe I'll look a little bit watery for a day or two, whatever, and that's it, right? And meanwhile, those memories we've pocketed forever. And I was like, oh man, remember when we did that thing and it was so fun and blah, 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 right? So yeah. As somebody who likes to chase goals with like every ounce of their being, you have to zoom out and you have to think about the effect that hyper focused mode has on the people around.
Yeah. Justin, can I ask you actually, because I think, Parris was open enough to share things that he feels he's working on and how he's worked on them. For me, I know in a different way, I can also be hyper fixated, or I can be, sometimes I don't always see the trade-offs in front of me. I don't see the gain necessarily. I'm like, nope, this is what I plan to do. How do you feel like that affects you? And how do you think, the differences that we place on our individual journeys sometimes might play out?
I mean, we have this discussion probably a couple times a week, to be honest. With our current fitness goals, I'm eating at maintenance and you're in a cut. I like to explore the city. I like to go out for some good meals. And oftentimes, they can be a little bit more fatty, maybe a little bit more calorically dense. but I tend to spring them up on you last moment, which maybe is not the best idea. So yeah, I don't give you the time to plan that into your routine or into your daily intake. So I think, for me, it's about understanding where you're at in your fitness goals as well, and understanding that we can still do those things. Like I just need to give you more of a heads up so that way we can plan for it. And then also understand that because of where we're at in our goals, if I might have a drink and you might not have a drink at dinner, and that's okay. And I can enjoy a nice cold beer while you drink your water.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think also, I'm also trying to be more open to like knowing when there's a place for spontaneity too. Like I do plan out pretty much every single meal always, but understanding that sometimes being spontaneous does have benefits, and it's not a sacrifice. Like, and I think up till this point in the podcast, I've intentionally not used the word sacrifice, but I want to say, like, I'm not seeing things as a sacrifice on your goals is important too. And when you pre-plan, there is no sacrifice to be made because you know what you're doing, you have a plan for it, but also being open-minded to like your partner's needs as well. And asking myself, okay, so like, I don't have a specific timeline. If I were to take, one meal that quote unquote deviates, and maybe that extends my timeline by a day or two, who cares? Right? Like, again, zooming out and understanding what the value is in the moment. But when I do have an opportunity to plan, trying to plan around those core life events and moments that we want to share together. So Parris, you talked about Tara's birthday. Justin's birthday is also this week. Whenever this podcast will be out, will be the week of Justin's birthday. And, I talked to my coach about how important that was to me, especially because we have one of his best friends visiting and we want to take him around the city and do stuff and go out. So we've intentionally planned to, take a diet break at that time. And I know the dinner that Justin and I are going to have is going to be very like special. We're going out for an indulgent meal, and that's the way it's supposed to be on your birthday. And I'm heading into it with full confidence and excitement, actually, because I get to look forward to that and seeing it as something I'm looking forward to, not seeing it as something that's like disrupting my journey in any way, because it's truly not. And so I think changing that mindset is really important for anybody who's looking to make sure that they can connect with their partner over food still.
Yeah, and maybe just to share an example, actually this past weekend we went snowboarding, about an hour, 2 hours away from where we live. And one of my favorite breweries is beside the slopes there.
You can shout it out.
Whistler Brewing Co. Shout out. So for me, it's always additive to the experience and an added memory to the experience if we make a stop there just to indulge in a pint after a nice day on the slopes. But I was hesitant to bring it up to Court, knowing her current fitness goals, and I didn't want her to feel obligated necessarily or feel uncomfortable telling me that, oh, I can't fit this in today. But you actually brought it up yourself and said, why don't we make a stop here? I know it's really important to you and it's additive to your experience. So we stopped and we both made, the right choice for us in that moment. And I had a beer and you had a kombucha, and that's what worked for both of us. And we had a great time there. And yeah, it was additive to the experience in the day. So I think it's just about recognizing the time and the place.
And you always have options.
Yeah.
Right? You always have options. Like, I didn't have to go and smash a flight of beer, right? Like, I could sit there with Justin, watch him enjoy his favorite beer in the world, and have my kombucha and not feel like I was missing out on the experience anyway.
Yeah, and it's also, there's other ways to experience food as well, right? If you're a foodie, I touched on, I like to go try new restaurants, but one thing that Courtney and I have been more cognizant about recently is how can we bring the experience of going to a restaurant to home. So we're finding, more, I don't know, how would you describe it? Just fun recipes, if you will.
Kitchen adventures, maybe?
Yeah.
Something
so,
like that.
Our date night now is how do we make this fun meal together on a Friday night as opposed to going out and, into a restaurant. Like, how can we bring that experience home and kind of do it our own way? And for me, it's just as fulfilling because, I might not be the best cook, but I like to cook, and we can do it together. And it's a fun experience that we can do.
That's awesome. And I think even like, for example, in a cut, like if there's a restaurant that, like for us, for when Paris was in his prep, obviously restaurants are a no-go. So I would just try to be more intentional about, okay, if I'm going to a restaurant, maybe I'll use that as an opportunity to connect with a friend. And then with Paris, it's more like quality time. There's so many other ways to have quality time too, right? So I think just being intentional about like who you do what with during those periods where maybe it's a little bit, more restrictive.
That's such a good point, Tara. Like, your partner is a very important person in your life, and they're always going to be your go-to, but there are hopefully other people in your life too that can share in some of those moments. And I think that goes back to way back, you talked about independence and the importance of that too. Okay, everybody, I think we have covered a lot of ground today. Happy Valentine's Day to anybody celebrating this week. And if you're not celebrating, happy Valentine's Day to you too, because at the end of the day, your fitness journey is about self-love and really just falling in love with yourself and chasing that self-growth so that that self-love just continues to grow over time, right? So let's not forget that that's at the heart of all of this. We started this podcast talking about how your partner can also help you grow as an individual, and you want to be growing together. And I think that's very true. It's truer even after speaking to you guys and having this conversation.
Are you guys, before we wrap it up, are you guys comfortable talking about the last topic of like, if you don't have a supportive partner? Because that's actually something that, I've had people ask me in the past. It's like, okay, well, my partner doesn't necessarily support my goals. And this is
Right.
a tricky topic. And I obviously have, certain stances on it. And I know I'm drinking my own Kool-Aid in terms of like, how can your partner not like support your fitness and health goals? Like, it doesn't make sense to me, but I see that's a real thing for people. And I think there's two scenarios, and we don't have to go on forever about this, but I think it's important to talk about like two scenarios. Sometimes it's not the right partner. All right. And that's just in certain contexts. Sometimes, like, if your partner doesn't want you to grow and develop as a person and chase purposeful things that give you life and make you live a better life or live longer or feel better about yourself or be healthier or have more energy, like, that is a red flag in itself. However, in other contexts, I think it not necessarily means that they don't care about that stuff. It could also mean that they have either an insecurity, like let's say somebody is really insecure about themselves and then their partner is getting in amazing shape. All of a sudden they're insecure and they're projecting it in a way where you feel they're not supporting you, but in reality they just have a deep down insecurity. So you guys need to open up that together and have that conversation. That's kind of like the first thing. And the second thing would be they just don't understand what you're doing. So don't assume that they're not supporting. It's up to you to explain to them. Because especially like most people don't have that in-depth fitness knowledge. So if you're taking a fitness journey seriously all of a sudden, you need to explain to them why, what the process looks like, what the method is, so that they have a better understanding. Don't assume they're not supporting you. Maybe they just don't understand what the heck you're doing. Because why would they unless you tell them?
So it's a two-pronged reflections, right? You kind of need to reflect on, why might this person be struggling to accept what I'm doing, right? What about them? Or what do you, if you are in a partnership, you at least know something about that partner, right? What do I know about them that can help me start to grasp why there's a barrier there? On the flip side, the other piece of reflection is reflecting on yourself. Have I done, or what could I be doing to help address those barriers or to communicate more effectively about this and what it means to me? So I think like you have to understand like what's within your control too, and take some accountability to the relationship and be willing to invest that time in creating that sense of understanding. But it does go both ways, right? It's two-pronged for a reason. You still need your partner to also, you still need to be understanding of where your partner is at too.
Just wanted to throw it in there because I think it's important.
It is. And I mean, like, I think we're not the most qualified always to talk about that because we've been very privileged in having supportive partners in our lives. So I think, that's not something I'm an expert on. But when I think about what it could be like, and I think about the absence of all of the things that make a difference to me that I get from Justin, that's tough. And it can be make or break to achieving your goals. And I think it pushes you to really understand what your priorities are on a different level. And yeah, I don't know if Tara and Justin, you guys have things you want to say on that front as well. It doesn't have to be personal, even just things you've experienced or, secondhand or from other people.
Well, I remember I spoke to a friend who, and I know this is like sensitive territory, but like she struggled with an eating disorder in the past. And so she specifically said, when people talk about calories, for example, that's triggering to her. And so I thought about, it made me think about like when you're in a partnership and maybe your partner may have struggled with like, and that goes back to what you were saying about like really communicating your needs and why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. And I think it's not a bad thing to set up like certain healthy boundaries with your partner if like there's certain things that maybe they don't like, that are a little bit more sensitive to them, and that you can kind of like, I don't know, in a way, accommodate. But obviously it's a tricky subject when it comes to stuff like that, because you're kind of, there's a lot of things that kind of go into it. But I would say, I think just being able to reflect on why you're feeling a certain way, like if you have a negative reaction towards your partner's fitness goals, and trying to see if there's a way that you guys can make it work together so that everyone's happy.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the communication piece and understanding where your partner's coming from, whether you are the person going on the fitness journey or if you're there as the significant other or whoever you may be in that relationship, and just understand why you're going through the goal or why you are looking to achieve your goals. And I think you want to just outline, this is how I've been feeling. This is the way I want to achieve these goals, and this is what the path will look like. And if your partner or if that other person in the relationship doesn't necessarily support that, I think there has to be a dialogue about why they might feel that way and kind of understand the context around why they are feeling a particular way about that journey, to hopefully try to bridge the gap that might exist between the two mindsets. And I think for a lot of people, there is going to be this initial gap when you first start on this journey because of potentially a lack of knowledge of what this means. There is also this feeling of like unknown if you're trying to be a supportive partner, like I don't know how to support you on this journey. So I don't know what this means, and I don't know what this looks like in my day-to-day life yet. And I need to kind of witness that first for maybe a couple weeks to get used to that. But I think also maybe even just preparing your partner or whoever it may be in the relationship with some of the knowledge of like, hey, this is what I'm learning today. I'm learning how to count macros, and this is how we do it, right?
Right.
And just provide some of the knowledge that you're learning as well, because I think it might become more relatable to them and more digestible in a sense.
Well said. Kind of making them involved in the process too, because then it doesn't feel like something you're choosing in absence of them. It's something you're choosing by them in a way. I don't know how much time we have for this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Is there something that you have learned about your partner by watching them achieve their fitness goals?
Honestly, like Paris is the most like disciplined person I've ever met in my entire life. Like if he says he's going to do something, he is going to do it and nothing will stop him. And it's such a beautiful quality because like it applies to not only his fitness but every other aspect of his life. And like if he tells a friend he's picking them up, he's picking them up. If he's like gonna, call his mom, he's calling her. Like he'll do anything for, the people he loves. And he loves himself in the best way, and I think everyone should love themselves. And I think it's like having that discipline is the best way to show self-love for yourself.
That's very nice. I appreciate that. But I also think like fitness has taught me to keep my promises to myself. And through that, I've also learned the importance of keeping the promises to others. So just as I'm like super all in on like, serving our client team or super all in on my own fitness goals, I'm also super all in on like showing up for my partner or, showing up for the
And your
relationships
clients.
or and the clients, right? Like when I'm committed to that. And I think fitness taught me how to be all in on something and give fully to a process. And now I'm just copy and pasting that same principle to everywhere else. And I think I've talked about this before, but like living with integrity means you keep the promises you make to yourself, which is the fitness journey is the best way to practice that. But it also means keeping the promises you make to everybody else. So if you say you're going to be a good partner and show up and do X, Y, Z, you need to follow through on that, or else you're not living with integrity.
It's really interesting that the thing Tara has learned about you is the thing that you have learned the most about yourself too, which is pretty cool. And Parris, what would you say you've learned about Tara as you've watched her kind of on her own fitness journey?
It's been interesting to see, because people always ask me like, is Tara like super into fitness too? And I'm like, she lives. It's important for me to have a partner with a healthy lifestyle, but I don't need another me, right? And
That might be a little dangerous. I don't know. 2 Parises in the world, let alone in one relationship.
I think the condo might explode.
Yeah.
I think it's been cool to watch her on her own more balanced journey of not only just fitness. I don't want to label as that. I want to say like fitness, self-development, self-care, self-appreciation. And I've actually seen Tara come a very long way into learning to give to herself in a different way and knowing and learning what her needs are and what she needs to do to feel her best self. So I think it's been kind of rewarding to see that. And some of them do have to tie into fitness and nutrition and sleep and checking those boxes. But some of them also have to do with things that are more self love type or self care type things that are not necessarily tied to fitness, but a lot of them do blend in with fitness, health / whatever.
I'll go next, or do you want to go next?
No, you go next.
I think like watching Justin on his fitness journey, it's first of all, it's been very different over the 11 years we have been together. Like I've watched him go from somebody who's always been a total athlete to developing in the gym to mastering, some sort of control over his physique to then, coming through different injuries and reconnecting with the gym. And I think through all of it, the thing that has, validated, because I kind of knew this about him, is when Justin does set his mind to something, he sets his whole mind to it. And it's not the same thing as kind of that discipline that you have, Parris. And Justin is an incredibly disciplined person, but I mean, it's just this sheer passion for, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And so he has consistently found ways to do things in the way that's the best possible for him. And that's been really cool. And not compromising on that and feeling like he gives his whole self to the process. And I really admire that because, when I get to hear him come home and talk about, this, I really figured out how to activate my chest today. That feels like a small detail, but it's just reflective of something I know he's been working on for years. He's consistently invested his whole self into that process. And then you see it become manifested in these small actions that he's taking, or things that feel small, but really just represent that sheer dedication that he has.
He's making me blush. So, I don't know, we've brought it up a couple times, but we've known each other forever and been together forever at this point. But when I think we first met each other, your idea of like health and fitness was very different to what it is today. Mm. And seeing the passion that you have and seeing that passion develop from, when we first met when you were in university to, now working with Parris and Truth Body Systems, seeing that passion grow and just flow through you, basically. Like it's palpable to feel the energy when you talk about your journey and what you've learned, and it's a palpable energy. And it gets me excited to see your passion, because I wish I found something that I am as passionate about as you are as passionate about for health and fitness. You were climbing the corporate ladder, have had a really great network and relationships built into the marketing and advertising space. And for you to take this leap into the health and fitness world full time really is an example of just how much passion you have for this. And I just see the way that you light up when you talk about this sort of stuff. If it's talking about or helping to guide me on my fitness journey and, how to hit my macros, and it's like almost a puzzle. I can see the gears turning in your head. Like, how can we get to, X amount of, protein, fats, carbs? And whenever we have these discussions regarding health and fitness in the gym, you're glowing. And I love to see that in you, because it just inspires me so much. And it makes me want to, to go along the journey with you and and find something that I'm excited about as well in my life, and something that I'm passionate about. And it just helps to inspire and motivate me every day. So,
wow. That's
Wow.
amazing. That's exactly what you want to hear from your sister's boyfriend. Yeah, true.
I will say I'm glad he went last because I don't think I would have been able to go after that.
It's beautiful. And I also want to just kind of close out by saying, like, we are stupid lucky to have like really good partners, and it's not
We're
something,
lucky too.
and it's not something I ever take for granted. And I think Tara has found a way to like make me feel so much more balanced in my fitness journey, and I can attack my goals so much harder and with so much more force, knowing that I have that support backing and also balancer, alongside. Like I know I can go really hard in the paint, knowing that I also have that soft side to like kind of balance me out when I need to be balanced out. And I think like even just like Tara walking in the room, like I'm immediately just more balanced. So it's kind of like you're the right partner should help you absolutely smash your goals. If you have the right partner, your trajectory towards your goals in anything should be exponential versus linear. And I think that's where people miss it, because they think a lot of times, I have these goals, but if I get a partner, they're going to slow me down or whatever. No, no, they're an accelerator. If you have the right partner, if you don't have the right partner, 100%, you're not going to be able to reach your goals as quickly or as swiftly or in the best way possible. But if you have the right partner, no metaphors intended. It's like pumping steroids into your goals. And I think that's something that I've learned through having a partner like Tara, and it inspires me to also want to be a better person for your partner as well. Obviously, I'm the happiest person when I am like chasing things really hard, whether it be fitness goals or other goals, and like she knows that. But yeah, I think the right partner should inspire you, and the right partner should be giving you more drive and more oomph towards your goals versus sucking energy away from it.
Well said. I think that was a perfect summary. So with that, we will leave the conversation there for today. As a reminder, everybody, please, please, please like this video if you're watching on YouTube, or drop a comment on Spotify or YouTube. And please don't forget to subscribe. We are going to be releasing episodes like this. Well, not exactly like this. It'll be mostly just Parris and I every single Monday. So please subscribe so you don't miss any of them. As a reminder, our goal is to really focus on real strategies for your sustainable fitness transformation. So every week we will be bringing you topics that are around integrating fitness into your lifestyle through a practical lens, evidence-based, no BS. No BS around here, just TBS. So, truth
Just the truth, no false, all true.
So, with that in mind, if you haven't already, last chance, not last chance, you can always come back and subscribe later, but please do it now. And we'll leave it with that. Have a phenomenal Valentine's Day week, everybody. Self-love, love to your partners, and bye for now.